Usually we have conversations that center around the beginning. Where do I start in home design? What do I do first? I'm so overwhelmed. I have a house full of rooms. I don't know where to begin. And that's a really, really valid question. If you're new here, you might not know what my answer is, but I don't hold any secrets. And if you've been around for a while, you know exactly what I'm going to say. You need to learn your design style. Now, I am using the word style, even though that is a very broad, generic term, but what I really mean is you need to learn your design aesthetic. That is unique to you, it is personalized to you, and it helps act like a filter that makes decisions easier. It reduces overwhelm, decision fatigue. It helps you get unstuck when you're feeling stuck. But how do you learn it? And you might think, oh, I know, I'm going to go take one of those design style quizzes. Don't do that. Don't do that. Here's what happens with those design quizzes. They are fun. I'll give them that. They are really fun because there's lots of visual eye candy. But what's going to happen is they're going to go through all the questions, all the pretty pictures, and then at the end, they're going to tell you what style you are. And those styles are big, they're broad, they're generic. And then you're left wondering, okay, great, I'm maybe farmhouse, or I'm maybe modern farmhouse, or California casual, or coastal chic, or whatever term they're going to be using. But how do you know what that means? That is the difference between understanding your design style and understanding your aesthetic. And I teach you that. I teach you that you can understand all of the teeny tiny little components that make up your personal style so that you can start making decisions that really honor that style and do it on a budget, which is something I love. If you want to know where to start, I'm going to invite you to come and grab my free guide. It is my tool for teaching you how you can get started understanding your personal aesthetic, and you can grab that at bit.ly/FF, like Fig and Farm, design guide. It is a 10-minute-ish video. Do watch the video. It's really important, really powerful information for you to start understanding the difference between style and aesthetic and how you can start learning yours. All right, go grab that again. It is at bit.ly/FF, like Fig and Farm, design guide. Okay, well, that's where to start, but you might already be in the process. You might already be well on your way. You might have already had a call with me. You might be learning on your own. You might be making decisions on your own and feeling really good. And now you have the question of, okay, great. How do I know when my room is finished? Now, admittedly, I don't get this question as often as I get where do I start, but it is a question that we need to talk about. So today you get to be a fly on the wall as I share one of the lessons inside of my home decorating membership, The Collective. And I'm teaching you, and of course showing you, the visuals that support this lesson, the art of finishing a room. So you're going to hear reference to pictures I'm sharing. Those are, of course, visuals for the people who are watching the video inside of The Collective. If you're interested in The Collective and seeing visuals that support the learning you're doing here on the podcast, you can go to figandfarmathome.com/The Collective to check that out. All right, friend, enjoy being a fly on the wall as you get to take a listen to the art of finishing a room. Enjoy today's show. We grew up with the phrase, home is where the heart is, but our culture has shifted and now the message is, home should be Pinterest perfect. I'm calling BS on that message. Home, it's not about the stuff, it's about the story. And whether you know it or not, your home is a reflection of you and is already saying something. So what is it that you want it to say? Hey, I'm Danny, a former first grade teacher turned home decorator. Going from a dual income to a single income so I could stay home with my babies meant budget, like ramen eating, Goodwill shopping budget. And I learned a few things along the way, like how to bring big style to your home without breaking the bank. And I'm sharing it all with you. Tips, tricks, decor, and design advice so you can learn to tell your story with your style, where you can start living free from the Pinterest perfect trap and start living a life of intention. Welcome to Fig and Farm at Home, where we design happy living and where it doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. All right, friend, welcome to Styling School for the month of February. We're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to talk about the art of finishing a room, but we're going to do it with kind of like a case study. So finishing a room is subjective. You sometimes don't necessarily know when to start, and sometimes you don't know when to stop. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, so finishing. We know if I were to give you the Webster's Dictionary definition, that finishing means bringing a task or an activity, in this case, decorating, to an end, to completion. And that's all fine and good. But when you're not entirely sure where that end is, or what makes the end, it's very much like the beginning. How do I start? Where do I start? And you can have that same question. In fact, we talk so much about knowing where to start. We don't really talk a lot about the ending. So I'm going to break it down for you today in some easy ways that you can apply it to your own home. But I definitely want to just acknowledge that I know right now you have questions. Yes, we want to know how to finish it. We want to know when to complete it, but your head is scratching. You are scratching your head thinking it's no more clear than where we start. So let's dive in. When you don't have a definition for done, everything can still feel temporary. That is basically the bottom line. And what I want us to think about is intentionality matters. It matters with where we start. It matters just as much as where we end. We know that inspiration creates motion, but that motion is not always intentional. And so when we are making forward motion, sometimes we can check that motion, that intentionality, with these 5 things. And these are the 5 things that I want us to think about. But first, let me show you the case study. This is a client's home when I was working on her home about 5 years ago. And this was an in-person design I did. And you might have all kinds of opinions about this room. What you don't see is that this is in a really lovely neighborhood, that behind this couch where the light is streaming in is a lake. It's a lakefront home. And this lady was a prolific gardener. Her gardens were gorgeous. Her home was really very charming, and it was full of all kinds of things that she loved. And she just wanted a little bit of a change, very much like you guys do. And so trying to think about what intentional decision making looked like and where to start in this space looks often like it does for you guys. Here's another view. And one more view. And you can see that in all of those pictures, she has, and there you can see the lake right beyond. She has filled her space with decisions that she has vetted, just like you guys have. They are colors that she likes. Maybe this is a handmade quilt. I don't remember the story behind the quilt. Chairs that were picked out that were very cozy. An ode to things of their lifestyle, like the fish here. Let me show you another one. The oar alludes to the lake. We're in the Pacific Northwest, so the pine trees, the antlers, all of those are indicative of marrying and bringing in the outdoors or telling your story, right? So all of those are doing those exact same things that I'm teaching you how to do. But as you can imagine, she wanted a change. And as you can see, something was missing a little bit. Okay, so what are the 5 things when you think, I'm going to make some change, and then how do I know when the change needs to stop? That is the question. What I want you to think about are these 5 components. I want you to think about balance. I want you to think about scale, cohesiveness, function, and restraint, which is, I think, probably the hardest thing. And we're going to get to that. We're going to break all of this down for you. So when you are thinking about balance, I want you to ask this question. Does my eye know where to rest? Does my eye know where to rest? Is there negative space? Is there an empty space for my eye to land in that area? Does one area of the home feel visually heavy with colors or too many metals or too many of one pattern? Is the non-symmetry intentional, or does it need to be remediated? You want to think about the intentionality behind the visual weight. And we know that when you have something that is very heavy, you can counter that. You want to think about the opposite of that. When you think about, we'll just say in her example, the color brown was pretty dominant in that space, even the color of the wall, though not a deep brown like her chairs, we can see that the weight was heavy. And when you put a chair in front of a wall like that, it becomes visually heavier. I want you to think about when you're done, when you're knowing when you're done, what is the opposite of that visual weight? It is the counterweight. It is the maybe a contrasting color, maybe, and whether that's the wall or the couch or the chair. You want to think about these things in terms of percentages. How much of one item is making your space feel visually heavy? And can it be a matter of moving your furniture rather than painting or buying new furniture? So you want to think about those intentional decisions here. When it comes to scale, you want to ask yourself, does anything feel timid or oversized? What does a timid looking decor look like? It looks like a small piece of art on a really large wall, or it looks like a teeny tiny rug on to anchor a whole seating area. It might look like a teeny tiny little lamp on a really large credenza. When you have scale that is not necessarily proportional to an item, yes, sometimes we have really nice ratios that we can check those with, like 2/3 the size, if we're doing art, 2/3 the size of the art for the thing that's sitting underneath or above, like a couch or a console. But if we don't have those ratios, if we don't have a metric like that, that is really very hard and fast, what we want to think about is what it looks like. Again, does our eye rest or does it feel like it's being questioned here? When we have things that are timid, looking timid, they're just really teeny tiny and too small for a space, you can feel it without getting your tape measure out. The opposite is true. Is it oversized? Is the furniture too big, too big for your space? Is the scale of the furniture so large that it makes the functionality of the room too much? It overpowers the room. And again, you probably don't need your tape measure in order to assess that. When you have too small of an item, it can make your decor feel apologetic. If you have too big of an item, it can feel like this was the best bet and it's lacking intentionality. And same with the too small of item. It can, even the apologetic view can feel not intentional. So think about how appropriately sized your decor is in comparison to what it is sitting on, against, next to, and how it's filling up your space. And if you're happy with it, fantastic. That is a good sign that your room is complete. Okay, another thing is cohesiveness. Now, I know you know this, but we're going to just break it down again. Could you explain this room's vibe in one sentence? And notice I did not say style, because we know that you can mix and marry styles. It's all about the matter of the teeny tiny little nuances in your design aesthetic. But what is the vibe of the room? What is the vibe of the room? The vibe of the room that I am going to show you, the completed project of my client, is the vibe is airy, bright, lake house fun. That is the vibe of the room. You know what? Not fun, coziness. That is the vibe of the room. That's one sentence, and I'm going to be able to describe it. And when I look at all of the elements of that room, you're going to see that, yes, I had repetition of color. I had repetition of design elements like wood tones, like metals, woods. I had repetition of things that were defined my style, so that told my story. Like you'll see fish that are going to be repeating in there. I have teeny tiny little design elements that are not sitting out in plain sight as a bully. They're not overly matchy-matchy. But they look connected. They look like they belong together. And when you can look at your room and you can see repetition And you can see those design elements repeated, colors, metals, wood tones, your style repeated. When it doesn't feel too matchy-matchy, like you just pulled it out of a box, your room is closer to being done than you think. Okay. The other thing you want to think about is functionality. And I want you to ask this question. Do you work harder in this room than it works for you? Meaning, is there so much stuff that you can't use, for example, the dining room table? You have to clear it off every time you want to go have dinner. Or maybe it's the layout of your furniture and you have to walk all the way around before you can get to the seating because the functionality is not quite easy to access. You're working harder for it than it is for you. Are the pieces that you have in your room, do they support your current lifestyle? Do you have access to the activities that you want to do in your room? If you are watching TV, do you have comfortable seating for everyone who might be in there, or the possibility of it? If you like playing games, do you have functional storage pieces in order to hold the game so that you're not going out to the garage, or you're going up to the playroom, or you're going into and other rooms in the house and sorting through and grabbing the game so you can come down? Do you have functionality to support the lifestyle that you want to live? And more importantly than that, your home is not necessarily aspirational, meaning it is not just that picture perfect replica from Pinterest or Instagram, or it's not living up to the standards that those types of photos, Instagram photos, Pinterest photos, display for all of us as the norm. So if your functionality is not aspirational, that is even better. If it really matches your lifestyle, that is a good question to ask. Is the room meeting the purpose you've designed it to? Okay, and then restraint. This is where it gets really, really tricky, because this is where, what is that phrase? The rubber meets the road. So yes, you want to ask yourself this question. If I added nothing else, would this room still work? Would it work? Does it function the way I want it to? Is it balanced? Does it feel appropriately heavy versus light and in the right area? Does it feel balanced that way? Does it feel like I have the right size of equipment? Does it support my lifestyle? Do I need to put everything back that was in there in order to be complete? Am I okay with editing pieces that no longer serve me? And this is where the rubber meets the road, because sometimes when we redo a room and we bring it down to the blank slate, but we put things back, the idea is that we have to put everything back. But this is where intentionality is missed, because intentionality means, and it's in alignment with this idea of having homes that serve you with the lifestyle that you're leading and the style that you want. Right? It's that combination of things. And sometimes we hold on to things for far too long because it's just the way it has always been. We've spent money on it. And so now if I get rid of it, it's a waste. That is none of those things are true. It belonged to a family member and it's tied to me somehow. And those are the things that hold us back from having spaces that we really delight in. Those are things that are now dictating choices and causing your home to feel less intentional than it could. So that's tricky. Restraint is tricky. Restraint is tricky, but I want you to think about that. Do I have to put this back in, or do I love it without it in here? Or is it missing that one thing that I took out? Can I add it back? Restraint is knowing when not to add as much as knowing when to add. And then one, of course, we have to touch on this, and this is how your home feels. Do you delight in the room? And what does delight mean? It means that it feels something to you. What is that feeling when you're in that room? One of the best compliments I've ever gotten when I've worked in people's homes is, I should have done this sooner. I should have done this sooner. This feels so good. Or I love walking into the space because it's like the weight lifted off my shoulders. I didn't know this was possible. Those are all delight. So, are you delighting in your room, or do you still walk in your room and do you still feel like something is missing? Something is not quite right. I don't necessarily know what it is. And if you don't know what it is, that of course is when you need to do a little bit more, whether it's making other decisions, going back and asking yourself, is it the balance? Is it the scale? Is it the cohesiveness? Is it the functionality? Am I holding on to too much? Not holding on to enough? Do I need help? Those are the things that you need to be asking yourself at that stage. And then physically, what does it feel like? Does it feel happy? Does it make you feel lighter? Does it make you feel joyful? Does it feel fun? Does it match the feeling word that you chose for that room in the beginning? And if you didn't choose a feeling word, that's okay. How does it make you feel now? And do you like that? Do you like the way that it makes you feel? Pay attention to that, because your homes, they are living history for all of our stories to unfold in. And if you don't feel good in your space, you need to pay attention to that. That is a huge clue that you are not quite done. Okay, so are you ready to see the after? Here's what we did for these clients. We kept all of the big furniture. I enlarged, that's not even a word. I got a bigger rug, but the couch is the same. The chairs are the same. There were no curtains. Yes, we painted. This is alabaster, by the way, from Sherwin-Williams, one of my favorite whites. Very light and creamy. Added a new lamp. Added some new pillows. That coffee table is the same. And we took out several pieces. We took out several pieces that were no longer serving her, that didn't necessarily align with her style. You'll see the ode to fish. We left that because the lake is right out beyond those doors, and we wanted to honor that. This was a hutch that we just took her collection of teapots and we put it in there. And now it's a functional piece. I think it was maybe at the top of a dresser. These things she had, we're just now bringing them in and making them more intentional, giving them a job. Here's another view. She had these plants. She had this little table. She has a table back here that she already had. We just added a few things. This bench, it was in the home, but it wasn't near the back door. It was hidden on another wall. But look how lovely that bench is. We brought in a plant and we brought in a pillow, and we just moved the bench. And then here's a view. So friend, when you are wondering how done you need to be, how or is your room done, I want you to ask yourself those 5 questions. I want you to think about balance. I want you to think about scale, functionality, cohesiveness, restraint, and I want you to think too about how you feel about the space. Could we have added more of her things back in? Sure. We didn't. Could we have because when she walked in, she felt it. She felt the difference between the beginning and the after. Let me go back and show you the beginning. Don't get dizzy. We painted the hallway too. Here's that bench. Do you see that bench? And do you see how this is a really good example of heavy weight? We have that bench with the deep leather pillows, and then a deep black frame, black mat, dark picture, and it just added heavy, 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 and all of that heavy in one area. When you can separate some of that heaviness, it makes it. Oh, and I think we left the oar there. We moved that fish, you can see, moved the clock, moved these. These guys might have stayed on the mantle. I can't remember what we did at the mantle, but let me go forward again. And when she walked in and she saw the replacement of pillows and the removal of this table to be a little bit more in line with the scale, and some of the colors that felt a little bit more cohesive with the overall cozy lake house vibe we were going for, she breathed a sigh of relief. It was one of those one of those audible feelings of this is home. And friend, that is possible. That is possible for all of you. And there we have it. Friend, if you want to know what it feels like to have a home that you walk into and delight in, one that you walk into and think, oh my gosh, I wish I would have done this sooner, I want you to come and book a call. Book a 1-hour one-on-one call where we get to sit and talk about the goals you have for your space, the things that you've tried that are not quite working, and get a little bit more in alignment with what your personal style is so that we can bring your room to life. So it goes from it's fine to you absolutely love it. You can book that call by going to figandfarmathome.com/decorating-SOS. All right, until next time, I will see you soon. Hey, real quick before you go, if you learned something new or found value in today's podcast, would you head over to iTunes to Fig and Farm at Home and leave a review and subscribe to the show? That would be awesome. And if you'd like to connect with my community of mamas who are learning to be intentional storytellers within their own homes, join us at bit.ly/design101 group. There's always more room at the table. See you soon.